Yeah, I think I had almost an opposite story to you, Grace. So I did economics at A-level, I thought the normal route, do econ at uni. In second year I applied for internships, I got one at a Big Four, I got one at a bank, I did them both, I converted them both to grad schemes, and I did the grad scheme at the Big Four. So for me, all of those decisions were very easy because everyone around me was doing that. That was the definition of success at the time, and I never really thought that there could be another career for me out there. I thought that's what I would be doing for the next 20 to 30 years of my life, have a nice family and kids, and it's very stable. And then I guess lockdown hit, and I had built somewhat of a following online, but it was nothing special. And then started working from home. I had a lot more time to do things that I genuinely enjoyed. I think I tapped into other skills that I didn't know I had, like creative skills, people skills, having a presenter voice, and things like that. And I just started exploring it purely for fun. It was always a hobby, and it was never something I monetized. And then when I started putting a lot more time into it, and I saw the value I was bringing to brands, there was a turning point where I thought, okay, I can monetize this to some extent. And so for a year, I just worked with brands, reached out to them, and it was all very much on my terms whilst I was studying for the ACA, had my Big Four job. And I think the tipping point for me, there's probably two reasons. One was that I then got to a point where I was getting opportunities and I was getting brand deals, but I wasn't able to say yes to them because my capacity was so limited because I was tied to a corporate job. What I could take on was, I could only do it really in the evenings and weekends, if that, because I was still working a lot of overtime. And then the second reason was that, and I talk about this quite transparently on my socials, is that the money I was making from social media was actually a lot more lucrative than I thought it ever could be. And I think for a few months in a row, I was making more online than I was in my high-flying corporate job. And it was at that point that I thought, well, if this is what I'm doing in my spare time on my weekends, imagine if I did have the flexibility of the 9 to 5 and gaining back 60 to 80 hours a week to put that towards something I'm genuinely enjoying. So for me, it wasn't actually a difficult decision, it was just more of an irrational one. It happened a lot sooner than I thought it would. So yeah, I left 3 months ago, and I haven't looked back since, but I've since learned it was the best thing I ever did. And in a corporate job, yes, it's very financially stable, there aren't many uncertainties, but it wasn't for myself. And since leaving, I think how I felt really is I've got all the control of my time, what I'm putting into my days, what different roles I'm doing. I've got multiple streams of income, so it's not just one type of job. And I get to really positively impact a lot more people on a personal level than I ever could have done in a corporate job. So I think that was a tipping point for me, is really when I couldn't not say no to so many things I really wanted to, and now I have the flexibility to say yes to a lot more.
Amazing, I love it. And do you know what you did there, which I find really interesting when you talk to people with quote-unquote side hustles, is they will rattle through the, I don't remember how many sort of degrees you just mentioned you had and how much work could have gone into that, and it's so interesting when, and there are a few people in this room I speak to that do this, and I probably do the same, I will rattle through all that stuff, and then because I'm passionate, and because you are clearly passionate about the other bits, that's where you can see your eyes light up, and that's when, amazing, so it looks to me that you made very much the right decision.
Definitely.
Cool, any questions at this point on career routes? Go for it.
Into a main job, do you ever have that fear of that no longer being fun because it turns into something where it's your livelihood, it's how you earn money? Does that ever come about?
Interesting. I feel like you sort of touched on that because that was how you felt. So why don't we'll both of you have a go at this one.
Yeah, I feel like when I think about this, I think there's probably, we have this perception of, and I think it's very much fed by social media, that when you have a passion or a hobby and you monetize it, this whole superiority of never working a day in your life, we see it all the time online. It's like, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life and all of this. And it's like, ultimately, if all of us have to make money and all of us have to, pay our bills, we're going to have to do some things along the way that we're not going to enjoy. That's obviously the long and short of it. Obviously, the aim is to get as many things as you enjoy as part of that. It's a hugely privileged position to be in that position to kind of even be able to talk about that. But ultimately, we are setting ourselves up for failure if we're always assuming that when we do something we love, it's going to be easy or it's going to not feel like a chore. When you have to do something, aka earn money, and you have to do it via a hobby, that is going to be a chore in some ways. I guess the benefit is that if it's something you love, it feels like a chore, but you feel like there's some greater good to you doing it, or you feel fulfilled at the end of the day, or you feel like you're doing it for yourself rather than maybe doing it for someone else, or whatever it might be. But I do think social media has, and I like try and really show this quite a lot, because I feel like my life and job can definitely look very glamorous in times where it's really not, and actually I feel like it's really doing a disservice to people if you represent this idea of like the side hustle, which can be absolutely incredible and can do really amazing things and can make you a lot of money, but it's never going to be this like, it's never going to kind of be this like floating through and never difficult. And I also think you wouldn't enjoy it if it was. I think part of the reason you do enjoy things is because you're in that like flow state. It challenges you, but you have the skill to overcome it. And as soon as we get into this mindset where it's like, actually, no, it's going to be really easy. If you're here, you'd get bored. You'd get bored if you were doing something that you found really easy every day. That's kind of